live. Remember to share this link with as many people as you possibly can. Right there, you can see the great image of Therapist Grace Kariuki because we're already live. And she was here last week. We carried on to quite some extent on dealing with loss, but we were not able to conclude. And thank you to your request. We had to have her come back, and she graciously agreed to be here to help us. Good morning.
Morning, Sharon.
How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Thank you for agreeing to come again.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
Yes.
So we had a conversation, and clearly you had even said that this one, there's just no way we're finishing in one session.
Right.
And we ended up not finishing.
Yes.
We trust the Lord to guide us today. We may end up not finishing again, but let's see how much ground we can cover.
Yes.
Because we began off last week by saying that this is a conversation that many will shy away from.
Right.
Yet it's a conversation we must have.
Yes.
Because we are, I mean, one time you're born and one time you would die. It's actually the Bible that says that.
Yes.
So let's talk about dealing with loss where it comes, and allow me to sort of guide you based on some of the questions that we had.
Yes.
So that we can see how much ground we can cover. So when it comes to dealing with the loss of a child,
Yes.
how can one was wondering, how can I help my spouse, navigate, and how can a couple rather walk together without one feeling left out, as though one is carrying the burden more than the other?
Yes, absolutely. Now, what happens and what I have seen is that you will see that the woman seems to be grieving more than the man. But it's because of the way men and women are wired, and our brains are different. How we process information is very different. So for men, they want to resolve an issue. The women want to express the resolving of the issue. So the woman is wanting to talk more about what they are feeling, what is going on, what they are thinking, while the man just they don't have the words to express what they are feeling. And also it's an issue of vulnerability, and for men to cry, for men to show emotion or even to express emotion, it is seen as a sign of weakness. And so you will find that the couple will struggle because of that particular difference. And it's good for those who are listening to us to understand that even though your husband is not speaking about what he is feeling and what he's going through, it doesn't mean that he's not grieving. Right. He is. And people grieve differently. So one of the things that a couple can do is to really do not judge each other. Do not create meanings about how you are experiencing them, so that you as the woman, you're thinking, I'm the only one who is grieving the death of our child, or you begin to think that your husband is avoiding the grief. So what you want to do is what we say, you have to have effective communication between you and your spouse, and vulnerability, which means that I can come and say to you that, even though I may look like I'm not grieving, I am really feeling the loss of our child. So that is the man. He needs to express to his wife that he is going through grief. Now, what I have seen is that the lady is crying, she is expressing a lot of emotion, and the man is taking the role of comforting her, and they forget to focus on the man. Okay. And so it would be good for men to understand that it's not a sign of weakness for you to tell your wife, I am really thinking about our child who departed. I am having a hard time with what I'm feeling. I can't even put it in words. And what what the lady needs to do is not to push the man to speak. You probably just need to offer nurture, where you just hold him, let him cry in your arms. Don't ask him to express. because he's not going to have words to express. So what you want to do as a wife who wants to help your husband move along the process of grieving, offer more physical presence and offer more physical touch. Just allowing him to cry in your arms, allowing him to know that you're thinking about him, and offering that kind of support is going to help him in his time when he is ready to speak. Then he will. Now, the other thing that I have noticed also, and we know, is that when men feel that they are being pushed to express how they are feeling, their frustration with not being able to do it is going to come off as anger. And so the woman will again feel rejected, abandoned, to go through the process of grief alone.
Okay.
So it is important for us to understand that dynamic right there, so that practical things we can do is, when you wake up in the morning, when you are going to bed at night, just express. You as the woman, express for both of you. And you can say, I really miss so-and-so. And then you can just ask your husband, how do you feel when I keep talking about how I feel about our child who departed, and don't judge. Listen, because as women, sometimes we can use our words to the detriment of the effectiveness of whatever you wanted to share.
Yeah.
So allow yourself to holding space for your husband, even if he's not willing to express. So allow yourself also to understand, how does he usually express? So if it is, you see that he frowns, or whatever body language you see, you can be able to say, I have noticed and I'm wondering. You see, that's a conversation rather than, nawe unakuanga umefura. Sasa ni nini mbaya? You see, don't do that.
Right.
That is, those sentences are calling for a fight. They are not calling for a dialogue. So you want to say, I have noticed, Han, I have really noticed that these days you seem to be a little bit withdrawn. And I am wondering whether you are struggling with our grief process. I want you to know I'm here. I want you to know I would like to hold your hand and we pray together for the Lord to continue to comfort our hearts. You see, so even as women, we need to also understand that we can curtail the grief of our husbands by judging, by using judging words and criticizing. And men are very, very sensitive to criticism,
Right.
more than we want to think. So, I think that gives an idea on how you can support your husband when the two of you, because the question was about that. How do I support? And then now let me talk to the men also. You lose a pregnancy, you lose a baby, and you send your wife to grief therapy. Please go together.
Okay.
Now, again, men are thinking, me, I'm okay. She's the one who is not okay. You are not okay. Let me tell you, Sharon. You see the loss of a fetus through abortion. Two people get pregnant, and then because of their circumstances, they decide that they are going to have an abortion. That man grieves, but nobody ever knows how he grieves, because I see this in sessions years and years later. Somebody is talking about a baby that was terminated, and he did not have a time to process, because usually it's the women who go for therapy. They go through post-abortion therapy and all that, but who really takes care of the man? And that's why these are some of the reasons we have so much angry men,
Right.
even in the church.
Right, and you're talking about where, maybe the doctors have advised, this baby has to, because of ABC. Or
any other reason. And then because usually people do not understand that even though somebody made a decision to lose
They also-
a baby,
Okay.
there is still the human experience of loss.
So whichever way,
Yes.
there is need.
Loss.
Okay, there is loss,
And
there's
there
need
is
to deal with the loss.
to deal with the loss.
Okay.
And fathers, I want to really encourage you, when you have the loss of a child in your home, don't send only your children and your wife to therapy. You also need to do that. I have had couples come to me after the fact, maybe 6 or 7 months after the death of their baby, and finally because the marriage is going through a rocky time.
Okay.
And when they come, after we've had I usually do 4 to 6 sessions of grief therapy. And after we have done that, the man will say, I really never thought that I was really having a problem. You see, because men, again, like I said last week, they go through loss, they start doing stuff. And that's the way they process. And it is important for us as women also to understand how our husbands and our boys process grief.
Okay.
So they are not going to express with words. They are going to express through activities, strategy, fixing things, and probably resolving specific things. You see?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well put. Thank you. Now, there was someone who was wondering about, the time. And they feel like it's been too long. I feel like this has taken too long.
Yes. So let's talk about, again, we go back to the process of grief. Now, grief is very personal. The journey of grief is going to be personal to everyone.
Okay.
Now, one of the factors that we need to consider is the relationship with the person who died. So the higher value of that relationship, the deeper the grief, or the longer that grief can stay fresh. So what you want to do, and I think if I remember correctly, it was I think it was a mother who lost a daughter or something, or a son. So when you think about it, as a parent, usually we say that we don't want our children to precede us. We want to go before them. So there is also the feeling of when you lose a child, whether they were young or they were teenagers or even older, you feel as a parent like you abandoned them. I have talked to enough people who have told me, when we go through the burial and when we are leaving the burial space, I usually feel, I felt such a strong feeling that I was leaving my baby. I'm not talking about the age, but that child, I was abandoning my child. So when it comes now to resolving or walking through the grief process, that parent will have a very hard time until they are able to shift their mind into, no, I didn't abandon my child. My child died, and it wasn't my responsibility it's not because I didn't do something. And even if there was something that I wish I would have done different, the death is beyond us. It's bigger than us. Death is in the hands of God. And so I need to get to a place where I surrender my departed child to God and be okay that my child is okay wherever they are. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because when we stay in what we call complicated grief is because we are unable to let go of the loss, to surrender to the loss, and therefore we are going to have moments of outbursts, and then there is also, and then because people don't allow us, people don't hold space for us to talk about the feelings. That's why you need to find a grief counselor and find a grief group, support group, because the general public does not know how to deal with mtoto alikufa miaka 5 iliyopita bado una grief. People have no idea how to help you. That's why it's important for you to understand there is the process of grief, which I explained last time. And I said now the 2 tasks are after you have accepted. The acceptance happens at the burial. because now you have left
Yeah.
physically that person is gone, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually you still hold on to them. So when you come to now living with the grief, the loss, it means that you need to get to a place where you are just that they are gone. And many of us, emotionally, we are unable because we blame ourselves, because we blame God, and we also blame other people or other circumstances. And so we are struggling with adjusting to the new normal so that we can now thrive. Now, I want to say this. People will have cycles. So they will be okay. And then the month that the death happened, they have outbursts, they have depressive symptoms, they have a lot of anxiety. They might even find themselves during the month of June, I always drink more, or I don't go to church, or I stop living for a while there, and I don't know what that's about. And that is the time that I will be off. I'll be screaming, I'll be yelling, I'll be withdrawing, withholding, all of that. You need to ask yourself, have I finished the process of grieving? Now, not finished in the way that I'll never grieve again. The initial mourning, the process of mourning. Now, this is where I usually help my clients to shift from how they died to how they lived. You see, so that now after the acceptance, as we are going through adjusting to living with the loss, we need to mentally, the mind needs to shift from grieving the way they died to now celebrating the way they lived. That in itself is going to unstuck you, because you have to give yourself permission to be happy again. It is usually very difficult for the mind, especially if you are the relationship with the person you are with was very, very dear to you. Plus, if you feel that you neglected them, and that's why they died. You feel like there is something you could have done. So that's what I'm calling the anger phase and the bargaining stage, where you are saying, if only I had, maybe it could. So what I am suggesting for individuals, you can go to therapy, and I'm so thankful for CITAM because you guys have free professional counseling.
Yes.
And I want to encourage people, if you cannot afford to pay for counseling, come to CITAM. And let a therapist work with you 6 sessions and you just say, I just want to talk about the loss of my loved one. I want to grieve, to move along the grieving process. If you are not able to do that, journal, write letters to your departed loved one until you get to the place where you feel you have released, because most of the times the reason why we are stuck is because we have too many thoughts in our subconscious, and we need to release. The brain is saying, let's release. So when you go to sleep and when you are relaxed, you start having disturbing dreams about them, because your brain is trying to process the trauma of losing that loved one. So if you start writing, and I usually say write unsent letters, just get yourself a nice notebook and start writing some letters to your departed loved one. Now, I know some people may be listening to me and they may be saying, why am I talking to the dead? Well, whether you talk to them voluntarily, you will still talk to them. They are in your mind. And one of the tools that we use is that. The tool of writing. Tell them what you are feeling inside, because this is a conversation you need to have with them.
It's going on in your mind,
yes.
But then you need to let it out.
Let it out so that you can, the pressure in your mind can be released. Because once we keep things in our minds, then when our mind is trying to resolve that, adrenaline and cortisol and other stress hormones are being released into our system, and therefore we develop now anxiety, the fear of the unknown. Some of us, we can't even go some places. You can't go to the hospital because that's where they died. And we develop mental health issues.
Yeah.
We have sleep problems. We have the problems with, you go to the doctor, they can't find anything. And or we develop like now anger issues, outbursts and stuff like that. We are unable to stay focused at work. We will have so many complications, but really they are rooted in the unresolved grief,
All right.
or even in the complicated grief that we are experiencing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So I'm glad you mentioned the outburst, because someone had asked about,
yes.
outbursts once in a while.
Yes.
But let's move to something else again you have mentioned, which is sleep and lack of it.
Yes.
Someone recently lost their brother, and they wrote and said that, I don't know how to deal with the anxiety
Yes.
and lack of sleep
Yes.
because of this.
Right.
Speak into that.
Yes. So again, your brain is trying to resolve or to think through what happened.
Yeah.
Now, depending on how your brother died, then if there are too many questions, you are not sure what happened, then what is going to happen is that you will keep playing things in your mind, and this will happen mostly when you are relaxed. So when at the end of because during the day you are busy with work and your brain is needed elsewhere.
Okay.
When you go home and you lie down, then that's when the brain now begins to resolve those things.
Okay.
I want to encourage you. That is, you will stay in the space of what I call the bargaining stage, a lot of unanswered questions. And I usually encourage my clients, let's answer the questions.
Okay.
Why did he die? Let's go practical. Or he was in an accident.
Okay.
So we kind of sit down and answer every question that the brain is bringing out. So sometimes I will tell my clients, every time you have a question, you can't sleep, I want you to write. In fact, I tell them, go to my WhatsApp and type every question your mind is asking. Leave it in my WhatsApp, so that next time when I see you, we will answer
the questions.
each of the questions. Why did God allow this to happen?
Okay.
What if I had all that? We do that. Others, they are struggling because the way that their loved one died was a choice they made. You see, things like suicide, other things like driving when you are drunk, other things like the doctor had told him not to do certain things, but he continued. Or there could be many reasons why I can hold, me who has been left, I can hold that person responsible for their death.
Right.
So I'm saying, if only you had. And this plays in my mind over and over again. The mind is a powerful tool. And Paul talks about that in all his episodes. I think Paul was a mental health specialist.
Yeah.
Because he talks about the mind so much.
Yeah.
And so learning how, and this is what I want to tell people, there is a technique we call a brain dump. When you can't sleep, please get out of bed and dump whatever is in your mind on paper. Okay. Because that is the pressure that is causing you not to sleep. So if you dump, you put it on paper.
Mind dump.
Yeah, brain dump.
Brain dump.
Yes.
Okay.
Just put it on paper. Release all these thoughts that you have in your mind, because your thoughts about the grief, about the death, are what causes you to have the emotions.
Okay.
Your thoughts trigger emotions, and then your emotions trigger behavior. So if you have too many thoughts and you can't sleep, guess what? The behavior is going to be, I need to sleep, and so I'm going to take some alcohol. Because when I take alcohol, it suppresses my thinking and I'm able to sleep, you see. And before long, you find that you are unable to sleep without the aid of alcohol.
So now you become...
and
accustomed to it, addicted to it.
Yes, and I want to encourage individuals, if you have 2 or 3 days of no sleep, please see a doctor, because the medication that the doctor is going to give you is the same as the alcohol, the content, or whatever the the chemical, the composition is going to do the same thing to your brain, but the medication you're going to get is not going to be harmful to you. Because now if you drink and you have a hangover in the morning, you can't be alert at work. Guess what? Now you are affecting what? Your work.
So you affect so many things while trying to solve something.
Yeah, while trying to resolve grief. So I want to encourage, if you are unable to let go of the thoughts, you can't sleep, you can't eat, and Kikuyu men, listen to me, we drink very badly because we don't feed. We drink and we eat nyama choma. And now we have gout, we have high blood pressure.
Okay. Can I take back that statement?
Take it back.
I take it back? I am taking it back.
Let's strike it off. But
yes,
the point
we strike off.
Yes, the point is what we want to do is to take care of ourselves, because we have a life to live, and probably you have children that are really working with you. I mean, that are looking up to you. You don't want your grief process, which can be resolved, can be managed better, to bring havoc within your family. So and so we are with mental health. You want to really take care of your mind. And the sleep, the problems of sleep, the problems of diet, and the problems of relaxation. Your body is going to hold on to all that tension, and there are many things that will happen to you. You know, people develop like nerve problems because of a lot of stress that has been stored in, heart problems because of a lot of stress that is you are holding on to. So I want to encourage people to brain dump. I want to encourage people to take seriously the exercise, physical exercise, and it doesn't have to be you have to have a gym membership. You can do a lot of things that you don't have to do gym membership or cost you money. This is helpful for grief because your body has stored all that negative emotion within you. And this is one of the things that to heal traumatic experiences like the loss of a loved one, we need to understand there is the mind, there is the soul, and your soul needs to connect with God, where you are able to understand when you are asking God, why did you take? There are some people who have not gone to church because they prayed and fasted and still their loved one went away. So they feel that God is cruel, God has betrayed them, and so why should I pray? And usually, Sharon, I say that is an opportunity for you to explore your relationship with God, because then that means that your relationship with God is on the transactional space, that that if I do good, then God is going to bless me. And yet we know that our relationship with God has nothing to do with blessings or not getting blessed. Our relationship is really about walking with God.
Hold it right there. It's a nice place to take a pause for reflection, even as we get business. Stay with us.
Experience the hope, the music, the anointing. This is where you listen.
Principal Secretary Geoffrey Kaituko, who hailed the collaboration, emphasized the immense opportunities available in the maritime sector. The signing of the agreement was done during his long-week visit in Korea. Kaituko has also stressed the urgent need to bolster the maritime education and training centers in the country to meet the escalating global demand for qualified seafarers. Elsewhere, Kenya has made a significant leap in its pursuit of the first-ever nuclear plant by unveiling a comprehensive strategic blueprint that is set to steer its implementation. The government plans to bring the construction of the project in 2027, and operations are targeted for 2034 as it seeks to diversify its energy generation. Geothermal accounts for the largest share of the power produced for use locally, followed by hydro and solar. Already, 2 sites have been identified in Kilifi and Kwale counties, where the plants will be set up with technical and feasibility studies having been conducted as part of the plans in place. Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir, in a speech read on his behalf by Principal Secretary Alex Washira, during the launch revealed that the country has also commenced the signing of relevant treaties and conventions that relate to nuclear power. According to Chirchir, the government is
on dealing with grief and or healing after loss is Therapist Grace Kariuki. And just before we get back to the conversation and answer some of your questions, allow me to remind you that if you're looking for an investment, then you can invest in Silvercrest Estate, Amco Properties' latest gem. This is in the great landscape of Thigio, Kikuyu, and it is going for just 1.7 million. And this is a gated community touching the main tarmac. You heard me right, touching the tarmac, only 10 minutes drive from the southern bypass, and providing you seamless access to essential amenities, and water and electricity are on site. Now, being a gated community, residents of this project will enjoy privacy and a sense of get back to the conversation. And Therapist Grace, we have a few comments. Allow me to read them and also read a question or two before we get to wrapping it up. Judith says, grief is the worst enemy. I thank God that he saw me when no one understood me. And anasema some people are also very heartless when it comes to grief. Okay. All right. Someone, anasema, someone told her, I remember someone told me, I grieve like someone who has never gone to school. Wow. People are so mean, yeah?
That's quite
Can be
cruel.
so mean.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Pole sana. Advise how to help a friend who lost his dad. He is a last born and he spent lots of time with him. It's 3 days since he buried the dad, and Jana, he texted me, says he feels so down about the loss. I lost both my parents in the month of February 2020 and 2023. The fear I have for the month of February numbs me. How can I get help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let me start with that one. It's what I was talking about, the cycles.
Yes.
Because of the fact that your body is somehow our bodies. I don't know how it works, but our bodies will get to the place where they will respond to the environment.
Yeah.
And if we don't confront it, then the body will always do the same thing. So our bodies get used to routines, then they get used to patterns. And so February becomes a month where I am so afraid. I want to encourage that person to really seek grief counseling. It will help. Just 4 sessions, and just come in and say, I want to resolve, just the way they have written it, because most of the times we go to a therapist and we don't know what we want.
Okay.
And so the therapist is all over the place. But that one, the way she has put it, I would take that and go to a therapist and I say, I lost my parents in this month. Every year I have fear, I have terror thinking about going through that month, so that now her brain can be helped to resolve the trauma. You see, so the trauma is when you go through a very difficult life experience that causes you to feel like you're going to lose your life. So you feel terror that is very, very high, and your body, your system is in shock. I remember when my father passed on, and we didn't have, I had not seen my father for 14 years.
Wow.
But when I went to the mortuary, I just looked at him and I passed out. And I wondered why, but I know what I was thinking. I was thinking about how we had not had any time with him. So that my brain could not handle the stress of the thoughts I was having about him dying. And this is what the person needs to do, is go and get somebody to walk with you, so that you can, especially a professional counselor who will know how to help your brain gain flexibility, so that now you can rewrite the story of February. That this is where I was talking about how to move from mourning the death or remembering your loved one in death and remembering them how they lived.
Right.
That can be very liberating, and that is the process of surrender. The process of surrendering to the sovereignty of God. And then the other question about how do we adjust and thrive. I want to give us the example of COVID. When COVID happened, all of us were in shock. Everything shut down. But you know what happened? Those of us who grieved, mourned, and then we adjusted. We accepted this is the new norm. Companies adjusted to their workers working from home, and they provided what needed to be what they needed so that work can continue. So as we are saying, after the death of a loved one, we need to continue working, so to speak. So in terms of living and thriving. Can you imagine us going to heaven and I lost a child, my child or my husband or my wife, and I lost them, or a parent. I lost them, 15, 20 years ago. I go to heaven and they are looking at me and they are saying, why were you so sad? All these years. You stopped living, and then we will say, but because I missed you so much. And then they would say, you know how sad it was to just watch you walk around and you can't enjoy your life because I left. You see, so we do need even to, because I usually think about the story of Lazarus and the rich man, that they could see what was happening on earth. If that is the truth, I want to also help my clients be able to say, how do you think you are, especially people who are in complicated grief, how do you think your loved one would like to see you living today? And once we do that, then we allow the brain to begin to shift. There is a question or a comment about a friend who lost the father buried the father 3 days ago. It is okay for him to be sad. What he needs is for people to listen. So when he says, you as a friend, don't think you can fix it. This is not a fixing thing. This is a being thing. This is where you listen. This is where you say, hey, I'm so sorry you are feeling that way. I'm here with you. What can I do? How? So a lot of patience, a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion and kindness, and allowing yourself to even ask the question, how may I make it easier for you?
Right.
And sometimes people may have very practical things they may have. Could you call my whoever tomorrow and tell them, or could you come take my child to school for me, or something like that? So allow yourself to not to think that you need to fix the grief for them. You don't, because you can't. Right. What you want to do is to hold space for them. The young man who is saying after 3 days, I feel very sad, normalize that for them. It is okay. That's the way he's supposed to feel. Because the grief, he's still mourning the death. They just buried the father this week. Right. So the grieving is going to take a while. I usually give a timeline, and I say the first 2 weeks after you've been told somebody has died, you go into shock. After you have buried the person, you start the process of now walking away from shock and denial, and you go into anger, you go into bargaining, and you go into deep levels of sadness. And so it's okay for you to be okay with that process, and you need to do the things that you need to do in order to pass through, ride the wave, like I said last week, and allow yourself to do things like now, the things that usually make you happy, do them. The endorphins in your brain will just be triggered, like cooking. You love cooking. You love gardening. You love walking. You love listening to music. You love dancing. Do that every now and then, because it's going to increase your endorphins in your body, so that now you are not bogged down with the grief. Right. So when people are coming to see you, allow them to come, but you can set boundaries where you can tell people, now guys, I really need to go to rest, because people can stay in your house all hours. And probably you are thinking, I have to go to work tomorrow. Right. So allow yourself to also talk to people and let them know how they can help you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to cut you short because, again, our time is gone.
That's all right.
But thank you so much.
No problem.
Therapist Grace Kariuki helping us with the conversation on dealing with loss. So many questions answered. So many, I believe, still pending. And good thing is, like as she said, we have counselors at CTAM. Counseling is free of charge. They are professional and they will help you through this journey. Please call them today or drop them a message on WhatsApp. It's been made that that convenient. This is the number 0709 861 240. 0709 861 240. You will get some help. Thank you. Thank you so much, Counselor Grace.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Blessings to you. And our time is pretty much well spent. That's it for today. That's where we